What's good? What's good? I want to start this video by reading the definition of psychological projection. It is a defense mechanism people subconsciously employ in order to cope with difficult feelings or emotions. Psychological projection involves projecting undesirable feelings or emotions onto someone else rather than admitting to or dealing with the unwanted feelings. That will become relevant as the video unfolds. I've said in my previous videos discussing privilege that the absence of adversity does not equal the existence of privilege. The privilege conversation is multifaceted and consists of many layers. And that is kind of, I understand the point of intersectionality. However, I believe if we want to make progress advancing our current paradigm, we should focus more on class privilege than any other identity label. And when I talk about the manufactured race war or the culture war that is being waged, I'm talking about things like Coke telling their employees to be less white and how people are trying to weaponize this idea of white privilege. Some people don't understand why poor white people get offended when you try to alert them to their privilege. And here's where the psychological projection bit comes in. Because often the people who are being so noble as to do the educating are people who come from affluent backgrounds or have amassed a certain level of affluence and or status. People who have class privilege like to talk down to people who do not have class privilege. And that to me is a perfect example of psychological projection. And I come from the Seattle area. I'm 33, and so I feel like my generation is the loudest, most annoying social justice warrior generation right now. And there's a lot of affluence in Seattle, and there's a lot of guilt and shame in Seattle. If you are someone whose mom or dad worked a lot of hours to provide you with a decent life, you feel guilty for the fact that maybe your life was easier than others. Money doesn't solve all the problems, not at all. But it does make life a lot easier, and it puts you into an environment, just look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it puts you into an environment that enables you to assess your inner self and to work on the needs and the issues that money can't solve. But you have to be willing to look at yourself, and this is where the projection comes in. Our culture is programming people to look away from themselves, to be distracted from themselves. It is, in essence, being designed to divide people, or that is one of the elements of its construction. It is multifaceted. It is complex. Humans are complex. And so when I say that I agree with social justice warriors on a lot of things, I really do. I really believe our world needs upgraded. But I worry about the future when there is a pending race war on the horizon. And I don't even want to demonize people with money, because I believe that money will always kind of funnel into the more productive people's hands. That's just human nature in the form of some people are better producers than others. But I also believe that we share this planet, and the people who are better producers should undertake their obligation to contribute to the society that allows them to amass their status and their wealth. It's very yin and yang. Your life belongs to you, and it doesn't. And so when I talk about class consciousness, I'm not trying to talk about it from a Marxist position, because I believe in markets and I believe in disparate human potentials, which will yield disparate results, and that's fine. Poor white people don't feel a lot of dignity. They might not admit it, because who wants to admit that? But look at their behaviors and their actions, and look at the rise in Trumpism. That is an anger. That is a deep anger and frustration and fear that fuels them. And that is what Trump tapped into, and that's what future populist leaders will attempt to tap into. But on the inverse, that guilt that leftists feel, that guilt and shame that they feel, if you've ever heard of this idea of the soft bigotry of the left, go check it out. That is a more subtle form of psychological projection, I believe. And this is going to be controversial, but I don't think a lot of people are consciously trying to perpetuate malevolent ideas. I think they believe in what they're doing. I believe in most people. I really do. But when you're up against an enemy that has brainwashed your allies, that makes unity so difficult. And it is so depressing and despairing. But we have to try. We have to try. And I believe that the label or identity of class is going to be our most uniting factor. Poor white people might not have had their lives made harder by the color of their skin, but their lives aren't great. Like, that's the thing, is that racism is bad. Racism sucks. I'm sorry that if you've experienced racism, but there's a really, 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 really good Tupac Shakur song titled Changes, and I implore you to listen to it. The very beginning, what is it? It's, I wake up in the morning and I ask myself, is life worth living? Should I blast myself? I'm tired of being poor, and even worse, I'm black. So he starts with I'm tired of being poor, implying that if he wasn't poor but black, it would be a little bit better. Like, I'm sure Snoop Dogg has experienced racism, but he's also probably living pretty good. Just look at those commercials he's in. I'm tired of being poor, but even worse, I'm black. The experience of poverty is an inclusive umbrella that presents the most beautiful unifying element we have. And the divide between the races is just manufactured to prevent people from uniting. And it breaks my heart. Suffering, the act of suffering, is like a gas within one's body. It fills their container. Your body is the suffering container. That is from the work of Dr. Viktor Frankl. You can look him up. He pioneered the idea of logotherapy, sort of a therapy based in finding meaning in life. But everybody suffers, and everybody feels it uniquely and subjectively. And we're in a world where we're comparing our sufferings instead of collaborating our productivities. So we're competing against each other. Who's the bigger victim? The oppression Olympics. the poor white person is going to think they're a bigger victim than the rich black person. And the rich black person might think that they're a bigger victim than the poor white person. But in reality, they both struggle and suffer, but they also both are worthy of dignity. Class consciousness is really the route I believe we can take to unity. And I really believe the brainwashing can be overcome. Left, right, center. We all have beliefs that can be broadened through love, compassion, conversation, empathy, being able to feel for the person you're talking to, trying to put yourself in their shoes. We all struggle. We all suffer. This matrix it's at a dark point, but it's always darkest before the dawn. If you've listened this far, I want to say thank you. And also ask for your support in attempting to build unity. It really is the people versus the elites. You have more in common with your neighbors and with the people of your community than you realize. I hope we can find some momentum. Thank you very much for listening.